following podcast is for informational purposes only. The contents of this podcast do not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Take responsibility for your own decisions, consult with the proper professionals, and do your own research.
So, this is something that is really amazed me, even if now I'm staying here for almost 2 years, but every day I'm still surprised how exciting is this place to be.
GRTiQ podcast.
We are like astronauts, floating in the space of time.
Welcome to the GRTiQ podcast. Today I'm speaking with Paolo Diomede, a member of the Graphhtronauts community, a Graph Advocate, and member of Graph AdvocatesDAO. Paolo is a very active and familiar voice in the ecosystem, and his work as an admin at Graphhtronauts, a supportive community dedicated to motivating GRT holders and to inspire new delegations in the Graph, along with his contributions in the Graph Advocates and Graph AdvocatesDAO, has established Paolo as a community leader. As you may have seen, the Graphhtronauts recently announced the launch of an indexer, and Paolo agreed to come onto the podcast to talk about that announcement, his path into crypto and how he found the Graph, his work as a Graphtronaut, and his experience as a Graph Advocate and member of Graph AdvocatesDAO. As usual, we start the conversation by talking about Paolo's educational background.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I studied computer science in Italy, actually in one of the oldest universities from 1596. And what I really enjoyed was the quality of the education, because classes were extremely small. And also I recall in certain lessons, we were like approximately 10 people. So you could really build a close relationship with your teachers. In fact, I remember a lot of time spending my time going in their offices, talking to them, exchanging ideas. And also my final dissertation was actually about building a knowledge management system for a new paradigm that at that time was called Web 2. So that was really, at the beginning of the new technology shift.
Paolo, you mentioned that you were studying computer science at a time when Web 2 was the major technology focus. How do you think that has changed over the years? Do you think that field has changed a lot since you studied it?
Yeah, I see also analogies, because when Web 2 started to become, more like widespread, so it was similar in the terms of that there was an idea to change the world like we want to do now in Web 3. So at the beginning, it was a lot of idealistic also people in Web 2 where everything needed to be free, and probably because there were still not like some killer application and they were not like Google or Facebook, someone that was, taking all the power. So I see this analogy at the moment, with Web 3. And hopefully with Web 3, we are going to see, a different history.
So after you graduate, you have a degree in computer science. What happens professionally for you?
Yeah, professionally, I started to do what we call today like DevRel. At that time, it was not called like this. So I was educating people on new technologies, on Web 2 technologies, and traveling across Italy. And I was like a freelance. And then after a couple of years, I started to work for, like a full-time job for a large organization. And so that is actually the company I still work now full-time. I work for OpenText, that is the largest Canadian software vendor. And now, for example, my work is about working with global large accounts. So in Europe and Middle East, working as a customer advocate. So the job is about solving critical escalation, and it's a job in which you need to connect with people. You need to lead people together to a solution. So it's a lot about understanding both the customer problems and also motivating people to work through a common solution.
Are you noticing more discussion in your day job related to Web3 and blockchain? Is this something that's growing and you're hearing more and more people talk about it?
No, not really, because actually, I see a total disconnection. So it's like my job, we can see like, LinkedIn related versus Twitter. So two different universes where there are people still tied with the old technology, while now we see, for example, like when I tried to post something on LinkedIn, I didn't get a lot of attention and a big audience, while, for example, Twitter is, where everyone is staying and where all the people in Web3 are gathering together. So the Web2 world is still, quite traditional. So now there is completely disconnection. At least this is what I see in the business world.
So I have to assume, even though people aren't talking about it, you as somebody involved in Web3 and you've built this great knowledge and understanding of blockchain technology, are you identifying ways in which your current work or the work environment would benefit from the adoption of some of these things?
Well, I think so at the moment. So the main problem is the incentives. So companies are having a different model. So they are still focusing on selling licenses or subscription. So I believe that probably, it's still early for companies to fully embrace, the traditional company to fully embrace Web3, because actually I think they need to change this management, that also executive needs to change the perspective. Probably we need a fresh management at the executive level to understand the difference, because it's like no one wants to get rid of their powers. And with blockchain and Web3, we are going in a unknown territory. And you know exactly, where you want to go. Otherwise, I see a lot of people kind of scared to embrace this, Web3 in the traditional corporate world.
Well, Paolo, as you mentioned in your introduction, you're joining me from Italy. I always like to ask guests that are joining me from different parts of the world what the attitudes and opinions of the people where they live are towards crypto and Web3. So what would you be able to share about what's going on in Italy?
Well, Italy is quite a conservative country. So let's say, apart from some districts like in the Northeast where we have a lot of entrepreneurs, so the majority of the country is not ready to embrace any change. So we generally discover new trends when they are already mainstream. So with Web3 is today still a niche. So very few people know about Web3. Of course, they know about crypto. They know about Bitcoin. Most people, they think it's a scam or something to avoid because it's kind of speculative investment. So the missing part in Web3 is the people, they do not know that it's a digital revolution. So Web3 is about the technology built to be the next evolution of the internet. And so this is something that in Italy, people are missing here. So, and probably another problem is the lack of good content, because in Italy, we are not very good with the English language, and the majority of the content must be translated. And since we do not have a lot of journalists or technical writers, so this is still an area where, for example, initiative like the Graph Advocates program can help, for example, to onboard more people into Web3 by helping translating content. So we are quite behind at the moment.
I'm sure a lot of listeners will agree with me that Italy's on a bucket list of places that I would like to travel to. I'd be curious to hear some advice from you as someone who's lived in Italy their whole life. What are the things that people need to see or do if they get the chance to go to Italy? And of course, I can't also not ask the follow-up, what food do we need to try?
Well, okay. The cities to see, of course, is my city, that is Rome. That is probably one of the ancient capital in the world. So it's the place to go in Italy. And for example, for people traveling from far, so I suggest at least to stay 10 days and to visit Italy and the south, specifically the Amalfi Coast, that probably is one of the most beautiful places on earth. So Amalfi Coast, Pompeii, and to try, I think, the local food, and to, it's very easy also to avoid the tourist traps, because they are generally the ones where the waiters are outside waiting for you and pulling you in. If you avoid the tourist traps, all the food is good, and it's also very cheap. But yeah, because it's a lot of tourists, you need just to avoid certain places, because you can eat very bad in Italy also, because if you go on certain places.
So let's talk about your move into crypto and what started your interest in this space. So can you take us back in time to when you first became aware of crypto and what your first impressions were?
So it was actually 2017 when I discovered Bitcoin and started to do some investments. So also my first interest was about, knowing this as a speculative asset. So like I said before, I didn't know about the technology. So for me, it was like, a new investment. And I started to buy basically Bitcoin Cash because just the name was cool. But I didn't know anything about this. So for me, it was totally an unknown stuff. later on, then I understood that it was Ethereum, and I started to do some courses, like some Solidity courses, developed some code just for me to learn. But then I didn't continue because I saw this really like premature, so I didn't see the potential of this. So I literally stopped investigating because I was comparing to Web 2 and I was saying, okay, this is too much early. But then I became interested again, like in 2020, because I was seeing that Ethereum was growing so much. And so I started to do again some courses. I discovered about the distributed application. And I saw that in 3 years, they did a massive, advancement, and the ecosystem was growing so much. I'm not a full-time developer, so I'm not coding in my day-to-day job, but because I did in the past, so I wanted to understand better what this technology was. So I started then to become again interested like 3 years later, because I started to see really a true potential, because from before it was like a speculative assets, and then I understood, okay, this is not just an investment, this is a totally new paradigm shift. And there is something more here.
The GRTiQ podcast is made possible by a generous grant from the Graph Foundation. The Graph Grants program provides support for protocol infrastructure, tooling, dApps, subgraphs, and community building efforts. Learn more at thegraph.foundation. That's thegraph.foundation.
Hi, this is GRTiQ. As we near the end of 2022, a roller coaster of year in so many different ways, the GRTiQ podcast is already booking incredible guests for 2023. The success of this podcast is the result of you, our listeners, who tune in each week to meet a new member of the Graph or Web3 ecosystem. Many listeners have taken a moment to leave a 5-star rating or a review wherever they download and listen to the GRTiQ podcast, and you can make a huge contribution in supporting this work by doing the same. This generous act, which only takes a few minutes of your time, has a huge impact on our efforts and the ways in which people can find and benefit from this podcast. I'm grateful for listeners who take the time to leave a rating and a review. Thank you.
Thank you for your support.
Roger that.
Paolo, you and I are talking today because you are a member of the Graphhtronauts, and anybody that knows about you or follows you on Twitter knows that you're a very active voice within the community. You're also a Graph Advocate and member of Graph AdvocatesDAO. So if we talk a little bit about your entry into crypto, you very well explained there that you first became aware of Bitcoin in 2017, and then you kind of caught the vision of the technology of Ethereum and what it could do for the world. How then did you make it to the Graph?
Basically, it was like late in 2020, December, I received an email from Coinbase about the listing of a new token named GRT. And in the email, they were talking about a new indexing and search protocol. And that for me was immediately like an epiphany, because actually indexing and search is basically what I'm dealing all the time in my career, in my full-time job. As the product we sell, they are all about storing and finding documents and media files and retrieving information. So it was basically clear to me that the Graph was the next big thing in the industry, and also one of the missing places in this so-called Web3 architectures.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. So Bitcoin, like a lot of people, when they're first introduced to it, they get the white paper, but they largely see it as a disruption to currency. They see it as a speculative investment. Ethereum, like you said, and it's been echoed many times on the podcast, people understand and appreciate the technology. But with specific to the Graph, there's a lot of projects, Paolo, you could have probably attached yourself to or become interested in. But it was something about the Graph's mission, something about this indexing and querying. What was it specifically that you thought, this is the future?
Yeah, because basically the Graph solves the most important problem in the software and the IT world, that is about retrieving data. So, if you think, for example, if I think about my iPhone, for example, I have more than 2,000 contacts in my address book. I have also more than 200 notes. So without the ability to search, I will get completely lost in my day-to-day life. And all the blockchain world relies on the fact that information is immutable, cannot be tampered, cannot be deleted. And this led to have an immense amount of information that is really hard to retrieve. And so basically the graph solves exactly this problem and is the only decentralized solution. That means there is no central power controlling the system. And without the graph, Web3 won't literally be able to take flight because we will get lost in this immense information, immense mare magnum of information.
Once you become interested in the graph, you find your way to the Graphhtronauts. And for listeners that aren't familiar with what the Graphhtronauts is, can you take a minute and introduce listeners to the Graphttronauts and explain how you found that community?
Yeah, basically, when I started to become involved with the graph, and started to purchase my token, then I wanted to find more. And I discovered this Telegram group, and I wanted to understand better about this ecosystem. And so I started to make also some questions. Also, I recall my first question was about system requirements to run my indexer node. My questions, so let's say, were really basic. And I would say also a little naive, because with hindsight, after a month or two, I went back in the Telegram channel and read again my first question. And actually, I was so surprised by the reaction I received from the community because I really understood, even if my questions were really basic and some, I think, really naive probably at that time. I mean, I understood how supportive, how kind and patient were all the community members to me. Despite the kind of question I asked, no one judged my level of knowledge. They were also keen to help and facilitate my onboarding into Web3. And their motto, and now it's also my motto at the time, was "We rise by lifting others." So this is really our spirit that is truly ingrained in our DNA. So we are here to help new people discover the graph, start their journey to Web3. And I think so I can say that Graphtronaut is one of the best things that happened in my life because our admin group is really made of 7 people, each one coming from different background. But really, we built like a friendship for life, not only in our admin group, but actually in the whole community group.
This is something that's come up on the podcast before in different communities and even in the graph itself. But Paolo, you said joining Graphtonauts really impacted and changed your life. It's hard for listeners to sometimes believe or understand how these things are happening, but explain that a little bit more. What was it about getting involved in Graphtonauts that impacted your life?
Well, actually, for several reasons. First of all, because I became, more aware of Web3 and I became also passionate because actually what I really like is the environment and the fact that people are really supportive. So we don't know each other. I mean, often we are anonymous. But the level of trust that we built in the community, I mean, is second to no one. Because if you think it's really weird that you can totally trust people without seeing their face, sometimes we even don't know if there is a man behind or a woman. But what you see that there is this common passion for people to work like extra hours beside their full-time job, to dedicate their spare time to help other people, to build an ecosystem like the graph to grow. So I think this is something, it's a gift, I think, to join a group like this. It's really, I really think that a group like Graphhtronauts is a gift for everyone that joined our community.
When I talk about Graphtonauts with others, I sometimes say, and I want to make it clear, Graphtonauts is not presently a DAO, but I always say it's basically the first DAO of the graph ecosystem because this was a community that came together, really solidified around a common mission and went right to work. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, no, true. And also it's very, something that, in which we are good. I don't know if we were lucky or we are good. I don't know what to say, but actually we have really different skills. So for example, we have an amazing content creation team that make amazing animation and videos, that we have community moderators that are so patient and they are able to manage also critical conversation, avoid price speculation talks. And we, have a lot of skills. And of course, we have also a technical team that maybe we will talk also later on. So, we are really, a group that we are really completing each other. And I don't know, probably it's also a matter of luck because I suppose so.
Tell me about the structure of Graphhtronauts. You mentioned that there's 7 members that kind of form the core team or maybe the leadership. I'm not sure. I'll have you explain that, but also how many members you have. And for listeners that want to get more involved, how they can connect with the Graphttronauts community.
Well, basically, Graphtonauts community at the moment, is centered around our Telegram channel. We are actually close to 3,000 members. Our admin team is made of 7 people, where we have basically, we do a lot of job in parallel, but there are people that have some specialized skill. Like I said, so we have 2 content creators. We are 3 in doing community moderator. I'm very active also in writing articles. We have also a technical team, a person that is building the app and also the Telegram bot. So we are actually, these 7 people, they are completing each other. And then we have also a parallel group that is called Mission Control, that are also other people helping moderating the main channel because there are 3,000 members. So we need also to cover like 24/7. So we have a lot of help on different time zones. Basically, like every once in a year, we add more people. Some people cannot work anymore, so they leave. But something really amazing is there is always new people, new fresh people that wants to contribute, and they become part of also the mission control group that is helping us in the moderating the channel.
Well, Paolo, selfishly, I've always appreciated the Graphtonauts. They've been very supportive of the GRTiQ podcast. And I remember the very early days when the Graphtonauts was just starting, and so was the podcast. There was a lot of collaboration. And in addition to that, I'm sure that many members of the Graph ecosystem who are contributing and participating made their way here because of the great things that Graphtonauts have done. I also want to mention that I've interviewed other members of the Graphtonauts community before on the podcast. Paolo, if you don't mind, what are some of the things that the Graphtonauts have contributed to the ecosystem?
Yeah, so basically I started also to collect recently some feedback. So because, some comments speak really louder. So, but first of all, we help people to start their journey as delegators for the Graph. And I truly believe that probably like 50% of the Graph delegator come from Graphhtronauts. And actually, we were very happy because this was also recognized by both Eva Bailin and Yaniv Tal during, the last Graph Day when they recognized our work. And that was really a paramount time for us. So we really help people to start their journey for the Graph in generally Web3. So this is probably one of our first achievements. But second one, as you already mentioned, is also the contribution about, to see people joining the Graphtonauts and then became active participants in the ecosystem and later on senior contributors for the Graph ecosystem. And we have a lot of fellow Graphtonauts that today are extremely well known and play a fundamental part in the ecosystem. They were also part of your podcast. So I don't know, for example, just to quote one, for example, Derek Mayer from Data Nexus, who shared to you his amazing journey. So he started like a delegator, curator, subgraph developer, then indexer. But I think we have many examples like this. Actually, it's also my career here in Web3 started from the Graphtonauts. But yeah, I see people growing like this and become like senior members of the ecosystem is really something that we are really proud.
For listeners that may not be familiar, the Graphtonauts have created a delegator dashboard that you can use to evaluate indexers and different metrics within the Graph ecosystem. It's an incredible app. It's a wonderful tool and a great contribution from the Graphtronaut community. What can you share about that app and some of the backstory about what went into building a tool like that for the community?
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So the Graphtonauts web app is a natural evolution of our desktop website. We wanted to provide access to the Graph ecosystem in the easiest and most intuitive way. And the app has been built actually around the main goal is to be mobile friendly because all of us use smartphone mainly. So, and majority of consumers and users, delegators use the mobile phone. So we wanted to provide delegators and also curators. So the ability to track their investment and also possibility to get instant notification inside the app and also inside Telegram. So basically today, every time a delegator gets rewards or a curator see their share changes, so they receive an instant notification. But later on, we also added several features like, for example, reputation system, like you mentioned. So we have indexer now, we have a rating on indexer. We have also reviews left by delegators. And this is really an important tool for new buys when they enter, the space and see. It's like, kind of Trustpilot or TripAdvisor for indexers. And Later on, we also added the subgraph gallery and also a tutorial section where we publish articles. We also introduced a real-time, this is very cool, a real-time reward calculator. So basically, when you are delegating, you can forecast already your reward. So in real time, you can see even before an indexer closes an allocation, how many rewards you are accruing. And also, very important that under the hood, this app uses all the official subgraphs. So basically, our technical team is basically buggy. So it's using the official subgraphs from the graph to receive the most updated information. So we use, let's say, like they say, we drink our own champagne.
Well, Paolo, Graphtonauts have a unique overview and perspective of the delegator community within the graph, as you mentioned there. My question is, what would you share with Web3 people not involved or engaged with the graph ecosystem? What would you share with them about the delegator community, the delegator stakeholder within the graph? What are they like? What's going on there?
What I see, basically, from when I started in 1 year, that this delegator community is actually a community that is learning a lot. Because, we saw, for example, like we know that this is not an easy market to stay, the crypto, so it can be also very stressful. But probably, what we do and what we see in our community, that people are growing. So people, they understand. So when they embrace Web3, maybe they don't know a lot, but when they realize the potential of Web3 and actually what the graph is solving, it was amazing to see this community grow and see fearless now. So they don't care anymore about, we don't have any price speculation in our chat. So they are not, following really the price of getting, scared, or they are in fear when we have, big crisis or dump. So I think so. This is really the delegator community within the Graphtronaut is really a community for the long term. So they understand that this is still the early days and they are here for the next decade at least. So that is probably what we are really proud of our work.
For listeners that want to learn more about the Graftronauts and get more involved, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, our entry point is basically Telegram, because Telegram is an easy tool to use. So you can reach out to us with the handle Graftronauts. And we use Telegram a lot. And also we built an amazing bot so that provide a lot of statistics and information that also our community member can use. And also our app is reachable at Graphtonauts.com. That is basically a hub for our community where you can reach also all of our social channel. And we are, of course, present also on Twitter under always the Graphtonauts handle. We are also on Reddit. And lastly, we added also our Medium blog. And we are very proud because we started this last spring. And we are seeing actually a growth of 200% month over month. And what we saw recently also, the latest articles are being also used in other blogs. So we are really happy with how the Medium blog is growing and the fact that we are even quoted by other blogs. So that is really something that some kind of unexpected, but it's a good reward. It means that we are doing, a good work for the community.
Yes, congratulations about that. And I've seen those articles myself and appreciate all the work that the Graftronauts are doing. I'll put links to all of these resources in the show notes. Encourage listeners that want to learn more to visit the show notes. Paolo, part of the reason we're talking today is not only to shine a light on your story and your growth in the ecosystem, but also to shine a light on a recent announcement that the Graphtonaut community has made. They've launched an indexer. I just want to ask you what the backstory is there. Why did the Graftronauts decide to participate and launch as an indexer?
Sure. So basically, as Graphtronaut, we establish a reputation to be a supportive community for delegators. And also some of us are also actually contributing to another channel that is Curation Station. So we can say that as Graphtronaut, we cover mainly delegators and curations. So it was like a kind of next step for us to become part of the Graph network. And it was like the natural evolutionary path for us, and something that is important, and I want also to clarify this, that when we started to talk about this indexer, we decided we will never use our channel, our Graphtronaut channel, to promote our indexer. So for us, our community is what matters the most. Also, if we think that, Web3 is really a great place to be because of the community, So we will never, for example, use our channel to do aggressive marketing, because our goal will be always to serve our community. And probably one of our founders that probably everyone knows, that is Lot, is always remind us that, we are here to serve our community. And actually, it is always before me. This is what Graphtonauts means. So, and this is what I wanted to clarify about how we will market our indexer. And when we heard about MIPS, we wanted to jump on board because we wanted to create this indexer, but we heard about MIPS and immediately we know that this was the right thing to do. But wow, the last past weeks have been really the longest ever. So sometimes I was working also like 14 hours per day because really, at the moment we are structuring us like a company because this indexer is for the long term. And I didn't expect actually that it was so much to take into account because we really want to establish good rules. We want to start good from the beginning. So we decided then to enroll in this MIPS. And we started from phase 0. And actually we plan to launch our mainnet. So before the end of the year, approximately around, the Graph birthday. So we will be ready also with our mainnet indexer.
Paolo, what can you share about some of the decisions that went into this? And I'm talking about, first and foremost, the community of Graftronauts deciding to launch an indexer. But I'm also asking about how you structured it, who's involved, how you determined your self-stake amount, and some of the other things that go into starting an indexer.
Yeah, basically, we are each admin. So we are the admin of Graphtronaut. So basically, each of us, invest our own GRT. So, and this gives us a percentage of the share of the new company. And basically, we distribute the fixed cost, split that based on the share that everyone can afford at the moment. So while, for example, variable cost, like, for example, closing open allocation, for example, this will be split equally. And for now, so we want to start small. Of course, we will use also the reward from the MIPS. But we decided the first 6-9 months to start really small. And then after all, to look for investors. So to also increase our self-stake. But before, we want to make things done, to have everything all in order, to be sure that this new company is working well, everything is in the right place. And then probably we will start the next phase. So in less than a year, we're collecting more and more investors to increase our self-stake.
And how about joining at the point when MIPS launched? Now, it's not, I don't think, uncommon. It certainly wasn't with Mission Control, the first incentivized testnet program that welcomed on first-generation indexers. But MIPS was recently launched, a way to bring more chains onto the Graph network. Why did this present a unique opportunity to the Graftronauts to launch an indexer?
Again, probably because the community matters in Web3. And what I see is so exciting, this MIPS, because it's like a learning experience. It's like going into university back. You see people from different backgrounds. So we have, the expert indexer, they are there to mentor everyone. But then there are people like us, for example, or other indexer, new indexer that are there to learn. And is so supportive of the community. So it's really, a learning experience, and it's good because, we work very hard for this. For example, sometimes I go to sleep 2-3 a.m., try to make things work. So because me and helping Baguette together, we are also taking care of some technical part. Together also, we must say that we have also some help from another technology partner that we have onboarded. So it's really exciting to see all these people gathering together, helping and support each other. Because after all, what is really exciting here and is really amazing is that it must be like a competition, but actually it's so supportive, people to each other, all the participants. So I think this speaks louder about this ecosystem, about the Graph ecosystem.
Paolo, what does it say about Web3 and potentially even just the Graph ecosystem that someone like yourself who's got a career, got a busy day job, has a couple questions, finds a community, eventually makes their way to Graftronauts, starts publishing blogs, and it forms a leadership role within the Graftronauts, eventually becomes an advocate, a member of AdvocatesDAO, and now is part of a team that is working on an indexer. What does this say about Web3 and about the Graph?
So what I learned about Web3 is something that, I knew already, but this reinforced my belief that people matters. Because what I understood here, that when you bring together brilliant minds and passionate people with strong ethic, you can innovate for all the humankind. And I recall that I was in Graph Day in San Francisco and I met Yannick Tal. And I also had the pleasure and the honor to talk to him for 5 minutes. And what I said to him basically was that, it's really impressive to see what they built in the last 5 years, from like a proof of concept in 2017, built by 3 friends. And if we think that today we have 6 core development teams, plus we have the Graph Foundation, and we have the Graph Council, the Advocates Program, and you mentioned also the AdvocatesDAO and all the communities like Graphtonauts and the local community. So if we start to count, I believe this is approximately, maybe 1,000 people working at least, even more, working to make the graph the most important piece of technology for the next generation. So, this is something that is really amazed me, even if now I'm staying here for almost 2 years. But every day I'm still surprised how exciting is this place to be. Hi, this is Paolo Diomede with Graphtronaut. If my conversation with the GRTiQ podcast has been helpful to you, then please consider supporting future episodes by becoming a subscriber. Visit grtiq.com/podcast for more information. That's grtiq.com/podcast.
GRTiQ
Podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Roger that.
What was the experience like going from learning about Web3, finding the graph, and then not only going to Graph Day, but you were one of the graph advocates that really powered and made the graph hack such a success? What was the experience like traveling to San Francisco and being part of all of that?
Well, it was really life-changing. And, it's like exactly now being in this episode of GRTiQ, because this is something really, still I cannot believe, because, I drive a lot during the day and I travel often like a couple of hours and I always listen in this podcast. And so, and now being here, for example, and, it's like, okay, but I'm the listener of GRTiQ. Oh, how I can be here, not talking. And the same going to San Francisco, because when I was there and met so many people, the people that I saw from Twitter, from YouTube, I said, wow, but I know this guy. It was like, surreal, like meeting like people that for me is like, that I admire so much. And so sometimes I still do not believe, because everything is going so fast and quickly. And so this is probably the reason why I can work on this like after hours when I finish my day-to-day job. And I think it's the same probably feeling that everyone has in Web3, that you are doing something really exceptional, that you are seeing really the birth of the new evolution of the internet. And it's really the beginning of a new digital revolution. So this is the reason why, it's so exciting and sometimes it seems unreal.
I'd like to also ask you about your experience as a graph advocate and working in Graph AdvocatesDAO. What has the experience been like being an advocate and working in that DAO?
It is another exciting journey in my Web3 career. And what I really like the most about this work is basically to onboard new advocates, because this actually gave me the chance to talk to so many people with different countries and cultures. Because in my day-to-day job, I'm also quite lucky because I do a job in which I talk to a lot of people, but mainly, let's say, in Europe, here in the place where I live, but talking to people from completely different countries, that also from South America, different continents, or Pakistan, Syria, also a lot of people, the crypto community in Africa is very, big, it's quite big. So this gave me, an opportunity to grow, to listen to these feedbacks and to listen to, to understand how Web3 is changing lives of people and how Web3 is really life-changing because of the fight for censorship or giving financial freedom. So the AdvocatesDAO gave me, a view on the world that is really totally different from what I knew before. So, and, sometimes I knew that I knew a lot, but actually, thanks to this program, I got to know so many people and was really an enriching experience for me. And it's nice to see these people now coming into the advocates program, and some of them also becoming DAO member. I think it's like, because we need to work for our community, because if the Graph and Web3 will be successful, and I know 100% will be, it's because of people. And I mean, people here really matters, and the community is what makes everything to succeed.
Paolo, you've obviously got a career. You've built an impressive profession on your own right and a way to provide for your family. But here you are, you've started kind of a side hustle, if you will, working within the Graph ecosystem as a member of the Graphhtronauts. Then you're working in the AdvocatesDAO as an advocate, and now an indexer operation. What's the end game here? Where do you want to be in 5 years by virtue of everything you're doing?
Yeah, thank you for this question. So, of course, my goal is to be full-time in Web3. And actually, the reason why, I want to do this, because it's really exciting. Because this is an opportunity that I do not want to miss. But I'm not thinking about any monetary reward, but basically because what we are building here. Because as I saw also the birth of Web 2, and it was really, something exciting to build a new digital revolution. And here we are seeing the same. And this is something that is not going to happen every year, something that is happening probably every 20, 30 years. And so my desire is to be really full-time in Web3, and to have our company, the Graphtronaut indexer, to be, the main source, for example, of income for my family, and also to be my main job. Because actually, when I am in Web3, I'm very happy, and always, I never get tired to help everyone to come on board in Web3, to explain what is Web3, and to give also to others the opportunity to come and create out a better life, a more interesting life for them.
Paolo, when I get the chance to talk to somebody like you who's dedicating a lot of personal time away from family, time away from hobbies and other things you may want to be doing, I have to ask about drive and why you continue to do it so relentlessly. What's fueling all of this?
Probably, I got, this feeling and the desire to change things. So because I'm really an idealistic person, and I think I cannot stand, for example, like injustice or, people living in poverty. And what I see that Web3 can really, change the people's lives. So, and I saw how already changed the life of some friends in Web3. And I see like an opportunity, for people, to really improve their lives. And so this is what, I really want. And I want more people to participate. And actually, I'm also driven by, the great innovators. And, for example, we are very lucky, for example, in the Graph ecosystem to have leaders like, Brandon, or, for example, Eva, Yannick. So I think I'm also inspired by these people. And, and I have a truly admiration for their work. And this is also, a sort of driver for me to do more, because you really need to admire probably the people that are shaping, a new idea, a new ecosystem. So this is the reason why, I'm so focused and so, committed to do my best for this ecosystem to grow.
What's your advice to a listener who is you, but maybe 3 years ago hasn't made the leap yet, maybe lacks the confidence or doesn't know the best path into Web3? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, I think it's to join a community of Web3. And I think so. What matters the most is that the community must be inclusive and supportive. In my experience, I'm also following other communities, and I think this is something common in Web3. So that actually, people are really ready to help. And also at the beginning, I was really, maybe I was afraid, because generally this is not like it's working in the traditional world, in the business world, in Web2. So people are really feeling sometimes, attacked by, their own ideas, their own beliefs. And they're also the fact that probably are not knowledgeable at the beginning. But the fact that this is the most inclusive environment, supportive environment. So I think you don't need to get scared. You can be brave. You can totally be brave. And you will see that people, is really ready and keen to help you. So just don't be afraid, because, people in Web3 are really so loving people and really, supportive. And you will make also friends for life. So this is something, it's the gift that you will receive. You don't know this, but in Web3, you will make friends for life.
Well, Paolo, I just have one final question for you before I ask you the GRTiQ 10. And that question is about your optimism. Are you optimistic about the future of Web3, and why?
Yeah, absolutely. But it will take some time, I think, because, I see that also people get annoyed when we say, we are early. But actually, this is the truth, because innovation takes time, and Web3 is a huge shift. So not only from technology side, but also in terms of how organization and society will be shaped by Web3, just to quote DAOs, for example. So while it's true that technology can be fast, but mass adoption takes really time. But I'm optimistic because I talk to a lot of people and I see young people, for example, now studying college. They are the ones that are already super familiar with Web3 wallets, NFT, metaverse, play to earn, and in general, all about the new Web3 apps. So I really think there is a tsunami coming in the next year. So a new generation of people that will work full-time in Web3, and a new generation of consumers that wants actually the control back of their lives. So this is, also a movement that already started some years ago. If we think of like Fridays for Future movement or other movement, it is, a change that is in the air. So Web3 is really unstoppable because actually it's the world that is changing to a direction where all the young generation are less tolerant with central power. So Web3 is it the future, definitely.
Well, Paolo, now we've reached a point in the podcast where I'm going to ask you the GRTiQ 10. These are 10 questions I ask each guest of the podcast every week to help listeners learn something new, try something different, or achieve more. So are you ready for the GRTiQ 10?
Yeah, I'm very happy about this because I can't wait.
The GRTiQ 10. This is the way.
10 questions for astronauts floating in space.
What book or article has had the most impact on your life?
Yeah, this is also a fun fact because also it's the reason behind my ENS name. My ENS name is Hor Nelson. And so basically my favorite book is the biography of Horatio Nelson, who was the admiral, the British admiral that defeated the French and Spanish navies in the Battle of Trafalgar and led to the defeat of Napoleon. So why I love this? Because Nelson is widely regarded as one of the greatest inspirational leaders of all time. His life is marked by courage, bravery, and service also to his nation, to the people, to the community. So this is the reason why I love so much this character.
Is there a movie or a TV show that you would recommend everybody should watch?
Yeah, I love old movies. So probably it's not very cool, but the old movies, the focus is on acting, in transmitting emotion. So I will say a movie from Sidney Poitier that is called Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And I love it because it's a strong manifest on changing the status quo.
If you could only listen to one music album for the rest of your life, which one would you listen to?
Yeah, that was very hard to think so, but probably I will choose Guns N' Roses. The album is Appetite for Destruction, because I think if there will be a pantheon for guitar legends, I'm sure the Slash will be placed at the center.
What's the best advice someone's ever given to you?
Well, I think you know this one. So, once I discovered a powerful TED Talk that was life-changing for me. And this is exactly because, sometimes you need to listen to certain words in some precise moment of your life. In that time, I was struggling a lot. And as we know that we don't get to choose our obstacles in our life, so the advice is that if we see our challenges as temporary rather than permanent, if we perceive our problems like changeable rather than immutable, then we can overcome everything. So I think I'm very grateful for this TED Talk.
What's one thing you've learned in your life that you don't think other people know or have learned yet?
Well, I think so also because, in my life, I had to, overtake some challenges like everyone else. But I think that there is always someone that wants to exchange his problems with your problems. So I think this is a lesson about seeing our problem from a different angle and perspective and see that, I think we may be much more lucky than what we think.
What's the best life hack you've discovered for yourself?
This is really trivial and simple, but I really don't know why I never started to apply. But recently I am doing, probably because my day are fully packed because I'm doing a lot of jobs in Web3. So basically it's to start your day with a task that needs more attention, more energy from your brain. It's really a simple life hack, but it's really changing, completing your productivity because starting the day with the most complex things that you need to achieve, specifically like intensive brain intensive. So it's really changing your productivity.
Based on your own life experiences and observations, what's the one habit or characteristic that you think best explains people finding success in life?
I think it's the ability to build a relationship for the long term. And I'm thinking both, on business perspective, when you need to start a venture, but also in your personal life and, in your family. So, building a relationship for the long term is really, you will be successful in any aspect of your life.
And now, Paolo, the final 3 questions are complete the sentence type questions. The first one is, complete this sentence. The thing that most excites me about Web3 is?
Freedom from central powers.
And how about this one? If you're on Twitter, then you should be following...
Yes, my dear friend Ahmad Mardeni, that was also on this podcast, because it's also, probably one of the greatest ambassadors for Graph. And also his personal story is yet another testimony of how Web3 is changing people's lives.
And lastly, complete this sentence, Paolo. I'm happiest when?
Well, when my son Enrico is with me. Even if he's a teenager, I still kiss him and hug him all the time. But I also must confess that he doesn't like this at all.
The GRTiQ 10.
After this, I show you how deep the rabbit hole.
Paolo Diomede, thank you so much for taking time and being so gracious. If people want to follow you or stay in touch with the things you're working on, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, I'm mostly active on Twitter where, my handle is PDIOMEDE. I post basically 90% about the graph. And actually, sometimes you see a lot of posts about the war in Ukraine because I'm deeply shocked by this because I have also some family members there. And I think this is something really, unbelievable that is happening still nowadays, in the center of Europe. So, but basically my tweets are about the graph and supporting the ecosystem.
This has been a production of the GRTiQ podcast. For more information, including detailed show notes, visit grtiq.com/podcast. That's grtiq.com/podcast.
Please consider contributing to this project and helping build the community by subscribing and leaving a review.
GRTiQ
Podcast.